Sunny Hostin, her husband accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit. Okay, now let's read this. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow.
You know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
If you average out the View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth.
And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out.
From daytime TV to full-fledged bankruptcy court, this story has more plot twists than a Netflix documentary. Did Joe just say what we think he did? Oh yes, and it's savage. Sunny Hostin recently discovered that marrying Mr. Monopoly with a RICO twist wasn't the financial move she thought it was. Joe Rogan, is having way too much fun with it.
Interesting, because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
You know, that's sort of. I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones don't have to name any names. Are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart but captured.
Sure.
You lose credibility when your husband is accused of masterminding a $450 million scam that is so cartoonishly extravagant that it sounds like he took career advice from Bernie Madoff's ghost. You also become a walking joke in Joe Rogan's next viral monologue, and boy did Rogan deliver. Here are rich, famous, and sunny host marrying into what may be the most unintentionally hilarious financial crime saga of the day.
Married, your husband's doing something, if he's allegedly doing something like this, you guys would know if your wives were up to some nefarious stuff. Let's just not forget who she is. She's been, for years, lecturing America about morality, inequality, systemic failures, and look at her track record. How many times has she had to go on in the past 2 months and look at the camera and do a legal apology for all the stuff that she said on the show? And then she also, on Trump's win, calling the loss because of uneducated white women that Trump won.
We have to know that this is accused.
All accused. Yeah, all accused, but he's in the RICO. This is a big RICO case that her husband's in.
This time, it wasn't a USC bout or a pseudoscience tirade, but rather a televised meltdown featuring Sunny Hostin, the queen of finger-wagging on The View, who apparently missed a crucial memo. Normally, when Joe Rogan starts making fun of someone, it's because they said something dumb about alien mushrooms or kettlebells. If your husband isn't secretly trying out for a Netflix documentary series called How to Launder $500 million without telling your wife, it will be easier to preach ethics on national television.
Get it? I also hate Joy Behar. So, I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird. So, I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, if the CIA is engineering, Antifa and the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of there are so many brilliant women out there. None of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View. I mean, they have brought in the lowest tier of the, what is it, the Y chromosome? No,
Double
the
X.
Okay.
Double X.
They brought in the lowest of the double X's for that one. It's rough.
Sunny's tone is so sanctimonious that you'd think she moonlights as a Vatican consultant. Every time she opens her mouth, it sounds like a TED talk wrapped in condescension with a dash of elitist flair. Sunny, the ever-pious, ever-judgmental co-host of The View, has built an entire brand out of smug righteousness, and now it's all falling apart faster than her credibility at a bankruptcy hearing.
Hey, this is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest fucking statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife out, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't
The
believe
other
Joey
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was
weigh.
there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles. And then there's also listen,
It doesn't make sense to me
There-
that a middle-aged woman could be dumb.
when you're worried about losing your job and you're worried about podcasts taking over and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us and he won, and this is fucking great, and Joe Rogan believes in dragons. It's just frantic.
This isn't a minor white-collar mishap. Rather, it's a high-octane Ferris wheel of fraud. Her husband, Emmanuel Hostin, is allegedly embroiled in a $450 million RICO case that makes your typical Ponzi scheme appear like a lemonade stand. Financial grand larceny, of course, because we have to maintain the appearance of innocence until proven otherwise. But let's not forget who we're talking about. This is Sunny Hostin, the same Sunny who treats every political discussion like a courtroom drama in which she serves as judge, jury, and moral executioner. She never encountered a soapbox she didn't want to climb or a dissenting opinion she didn't want to swat like a fly at a wine tasting. The same Sunny believes that her status as the national arbiter of truth is justified by her being loud and legally adjacent, and now her moral high horse has fallen over a federal indictment. Of course, Joe Rogan is the real hero here, unofficially and unwelcomely.
The View co-host Sunny Hostin's husband, Emmanuel Hostin, has been accused of federal insurance fraud. According to a new lawsuit obtained by Page Six, the orthopedic surgeon was one of 200 defendants named in one of the biggest racketeer, influence, and corrupt organization cases ever filed in New York. Emmanuel was accused of federal insurance fraud and, quote, getting kickbacks by performing surgery and billing a company that insured taxi companies and Uber and Lyft drivers. According to the documents, he knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgery.
Because Joe Rogan did what Joe Rogan does best, say the painfully obvious thing that no one else wants to say on air, while The View pretended this story didn't exist and ignored Joy Bahar's clothing choices. He only needed a microphone and no legal jargon, makeup artists, or a daytime TV audience held captive by cards. You could almost hear the snickering as Rogan ripped into the ridiculousness of Sunny Host's marriage to what may be the most ambitious financial pirate in the world. Sunny, who has spent years portraying half of the country as morally bankrupt, is now sharing a bank account with a man accused of making Enron look like a clerical error. While she's busy shouting over guests and glaring at conservatives, her financial empire is apparently held together with hubris and dental floss. But wait, it gets better. The other hosts of The View have gone silent. You'd think someone had hit the mute button on a group chat full of school principals who had just learned that their star student had been caught stealing laptops. Not a word, not a mutter, not even a passive-aggressive allusion to the personal hardships of individuals suddenly. The sisterhood of daytime drama has no idea what to do.
This is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true.
They get so much hate watching and
Yeah.
hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a rabies infested hen house.
And at
It's
this,
not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, you know, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
Those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point, most of those people can't.
While the legal facts are piling up like unfiled taxes, we're not watching loyalty when Whoopi Goldberg remains silent about a $450 million scam involving her co-host. Rather, it's damage control. Similarly, when Joy Behar avoids her typical sarcasm to act as though nothing happened, we're watching fear that if they say anything, their own hypocrisy might surface like a bloated secret in a shallow pond. Sunny's days of enjoying champagne on the moral high ground may be officially over if Emmanuel Host is even half as guilty as the headlines indicate. After all, when your household is the subject of a financial investigation so big that it requires a whiteboard, you can't exactly continue playing ethics bingo on live television. Let's take a moment to recognize the utter ridiculousness. Being legally close to a man who may have perpetrated fiscal war crimes, Sunny Hostin may be one of the only people still living who was able to use a daytime talk show as a platform for legal superiority. It's a Greek tragedy penned by a Wall Street intern, not irony.
Orthopedic surgeon and husband of the View co-host Sunny Hostin is accused in December. Lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow. Hostin's attorney Daniel Twites denies the allegations, calling the lawsuit a meritless attempt by a near bankrupt insurance carrier to intimidate doctors and restrict healthcare benefits. The case involves claims that Hostin performs unnecessary surgeries on patients after minor accidents without exploring less invasive treatments, with American Transit citing New York's 1974 no-fault law as contributing to widespread insurance fraud.
As The View pretends this never happened, Joe Rogan is living rent-free in her collapse. He's likely laughing between podcast guests while sipping his mushroom tea and shaking his head like, "See, told you the elites were fake." That's the part that hurts the most for Sunny and her team, because they've spent years positioning themselves as the moral elite, with the last say on what's right and wrong. Now that the castle is made of credit card fraud and unfiled disclosures, it's even more hilarious to think that Sunny might lose everything, financially as well as emotionally. Because if her husband's assets are frozen, their accounts are involved in legal issues, and civil lawsuits start coming in like confetti at a fraudster's birthday party, she might be facing the kind of bankruptcy that would force you to exchange your Louis Vuitton for Skechers. Imagine the anxiety when the AMX is turned down at brunch, and just when you thought things couldn't get any worse for the moral compass of the locals, the threat of financial catastrophe appears. Indeed, the legal ramifications could be the icing on the cake. Sunday, because things tend to get out of control when your husband has a $450 million RICO tab and your joint checking account begins to look like a dried-up kiddie pool.
Goldberg said.
What'd you say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it because it's so
On TV,
crazy.
she said
on television.
Tom, what'd you always say? It's always the people that always do the pointing, and it always comes back to them, all right? So when you said this is the largest RICO case ever filed in the state of New York, you guys wrap that around your brain. That's bigger than the mafia case. Like the mafia one was number one. This one takes it over. So he was scamming insurance companies from taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. He was performing unnecessary surgeries and then providing fraudulent medical services in exchange for the case.
Legal professionals already, those unfortunate people who must read the fine print are furrowing their brows and muttering the magic words marital assets. Yes, that's correct. It turns out that when you say "I do," you might also be saying "I'll co-sign your federal indictment." Sunny's elegant Hamptons home, her expensive handbags, and perhaps even the personalized espresso machine in her dressing room might all be up for grabs. We are discussing joint funds. Baby Sunny may have taken pride in her untouchability with her moral superiority complex and righteous tirades, but the IRS doesn't give a damn about your opinions. If a civil suit is filed and it's hammering harder than an irate Starbucks barista in the morning rush, she might end up trading Herms for hand-me-downs ranging from ramen noodles to Hamptons brunches. The headline of one parody said, "The View just got a lot bleer." And not just because Joy Behar still finds her hilarious. There's a very real chance that Sunny will be spending money more quickly than The View loses viewers every time she speaks if she is discovered to be even slightly involved in the situation, or simply financially involved. Financial collapse if the paper trail links those luxury heels to RICO's receipts. Bankruptcy might be the next thing on her to-do list after avoiding eye contact with Whoopi, regardless of how many books you've sold or panels you've spoken on.
In fairness, though, I mean, The View has to be, if you average out The View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And so it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
you don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin.
You think it's
dumb.
deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out. It's like if you had an idea for a premise and it was totally baked and half baked, and you went on stage with it, and it's not.
And let's be truthful. The View can't stand another scandal in between Meghan McCain's on-air treatment sessions. This show was already hanging on by a thread because of Whoopi's time-traveling historical analogies and Joy's total incapacity to understand contemporary politics without a teleprompter. Sunny was supposed to be the smart one, but now she's the one searching online for information on how to file for bankruptcy anonymously. Don't worry, they'll find a way to spin it by blaming patriarchy, systemic issues, the pressures of being a successful woman in the media, or anything else except the possibility that someone in her home attempted to rob the Monopoly Bank and was caught holding the community chest. It's almost admirable how unaccountable it is to go about your daily life as if nothing were wrong, as if federal agents hadn't just knocked on your mahogany front door with a folder labeled Exhibit A through Z. That's the kind of denial you only see on national television or in politics. But what about the viewers, the devoted viewers of The View, who tune in every day to hear from a panel of women who believe brunch counts as civic engagement? Are they not entitled to an explanation, or at the very least a juicy confession segment where Sunny admits her entire life may have been funded by criminal proceeds? Refrain from holding your breath.
Problem with that show is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. And they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. They did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. It's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race.
Yes.
The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
Everybody's just individual.
Awkward, quiet, passive nods, and a well-written statement that includes phrases like respecting privacy and focusing on healing will be what we get instead. Please don't look at our offshore accounts. So here we are, Sunny Hostin, moral crusader turned potential bankruptcy candidate, surrounded by co-hosts too scared to comment and a husband who may or may not be the financial equivalent of a conspiracy theorist. Rogan simply keeps winning because every time the mainstream media pretends this isn't a story, his credibility grows like a conspiracy theory with a gym membership. He doesn't need to fabricate outrage. All he has to do is wait for The View to implode under the weight of its own contradictions, and they never let him down. The universe is telling us that it still has a sense of humor, so raise a glass, preferably one that wasn't purchased with stolen money, and toast to the demise of smug hypocrisy, because if Sunny Host thought she could continue to ride high forever, she just learned what happens when the FBI raids the stable. Bond villain, and the icing on the cake is that the loudest voice in the media calling it out is a guy who records podcasts in a room full of elk heads and kettlebells.
Show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah,
undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
That's what I think. The other ones, there's a couple of the other ones don't have to name any names, are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
A plan, yes, and Joe Rogan keeps winning as if the universe saw the controversy and gave him a golden microphone and a fresh tub of popcorn, while The View stumbles around as if it was compromised by an intern who hasn't had enough sleep. Joe's credibility keeps growing as Rogan's Over on Spotify easily dismantles elite rubbish with the vigor of a jiu-jitsu philosopher on espresso. The host and headline continue to melt like soft serve in a Florida hot. To be honest, Joe's podcast is a tumultuous intellectual battle that resembles a cross between Fight Club and TV Talk. You're as likely to hear a hypothesis about black holes as you are to hear someone vent over oat milk. Even the cue card guy at The View is likely subscribing to Rogan's podcast for a dose of real brain activity at this point, as The View is essentially broadcast group therapy with yell breaks, a few Chardonnay-fueled tirades, and a moral compass spinning like it's been drawn in by hypocrisy.